Hi. In this video, we're going to be talking about the inverse of a function. Now, to lead into this, let's think about inverse operations. Inverse operations are operations that are opposite of each other or that undo each other. For example, addition and subtraction, multiplication and division. If you take something and square it, the inverse of that would be to take the square root of it. And there are more, and we'll go over more as we go along. But the inverse of a function is basically a function that undoes it, undoes an original function. So to come up with a more formal definition, let's say that uh, for any function, and we're going to call this function f, the inverse of the function, which is denoted by f, and then we're going to put a -1 as a superscript. So up in the top part, put a -1 there. This means inverse of f. Okay. What this does is it maps, take the italics off, it maps the output of the function of f of x back to x. So in other words, if you take something and you do the function f to it, and then you run it back through the inverse of f, you come out with the same thing that you started with. So in English, I would say that the inverse undoes the function. All right, now the way we write this is this. You take the inverse of your function, then you end up with what you started with, what you put in here. So if you do f of 2, and then you get some number out, and you do the inverse of f to that number you got out, you'll end up with 2 again. All right, so what we're going to be doing in this video is talking about the steps on how to find the inverse of a function. So let's go over the steps now. Step 1. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to replace the f of x with y. Okay, this is because y is easy to deal with. You can solve for y, and it's just another way to represent your output. Also, sometimes inverses aren't functions. So we can't have function notation if it's not a function. All right, step 2. We're going to now change all the x's to y's and all the y's to x's. All right. You just do exactly what it says. Change all the x's to y's and y's to x's. And in the next video, I'll show you a few examples of this. Step 3, you solve for y. So we switched our inputs and outputs, and then we're solving for our output again. So step 4, if it's a function, then you now replace y with your function notation for inverse. So f, the -1, that's the inverse of f of x. All right, and there's the steps to find the inverse. Now the last thing I want to talk about in this video is graphing inverse functions, what the graphs look like. So when you graph these things, basically all that's happening is you're switching your x's and your y's. So if the point A, B is a point on the graph of f of x, then the point BA is on the graph of the inverse of f of x. All right, what this basically does is we're switching our x and y's, and so this reflects, let me say, the graphs are reflections of each other across the line y equals x, which you may remember from a transformation lesson. All right, so that's our intro to it. In the next video, I'll be showing how to do some of these examples. I'll be following our 4 steps, and that's it.